My colleague Shavan joining us with the big exclusive story in prime time. Shavan, over to you.
Well, thank you, Niranjan. On This Is Exclusive, the big story, the Dawood link that has emerged and also the properties that have been usurped. Republic will get you a ground report and also the charge sheet that has been accessed by Republic TV. Republic has accessed the 75-page charge sheet filed by the Enforcement Directorate, which proves Nawab Malik's connection to the D gang. Republic reports from the ground the property mentioned in the charge sheet filed by the Enforcement Directorate in Nawab Malik case. Varanasi District Court reserves the order on Shringar Gauri and Gyanvapi Mosque Complex case hearing to resume again on Tuesday. Back-to-back shocking videos emerge from Kerala. Did PFI allegedly use children to issue threat? After police probe into the sloganeering and child right panel taking cognizance of the issue, the PFI has issued a statement on the same. The big story of the day, after the special PMLA court took cognizance of the charge sheet that was filed by the Enforcement Directorate against Maharashtra Minister Nawab Malik, Republic tracks down the property mentioned in the charge sheet. The special PMLA court said that Nawab Malik was knowingly involved in money laundering and the criminal conspiracy with the D-gang members to usurp Gaonwala compound in Kurla. The court has issued a process against the NCP minister and the 1993 bomb blast case accused Sardar Khan, who was also named in the case. Therefore, the property that has been usurped by Malik in connivance with Haseena, Parkar, sister of gangster Dawood Ibrahim, and others were proceeds of crime under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Now, in the charge sheet, the Enforcement Directorate claimed that Malik had conducted a survey of the illegal tenants which he introduced at the Gaonwala compound and took the help of Sardar Khan for coordinating with the surveyor. Malik also held several meetings with Haseena Parkar along with the Sardar Khan to usurp the compound. Now, this is the entire charge sheet that has been accessed by Republic TV. But before I go across to the charge sheet, let's take a look at that report that has been filed by my colleague Abhishek. He's gone to the very compound, the compound that has now come under the scanner, what the Enforcement Directorate is basically calling the very place from where rent were being taken, and these are proceeds of crime. What's the big story here? The big connection that is essentially emerging, the D-gang connection that's emerging. But before I go across to the details of the charge sheet that has been accessed by Republic TV, let's take a look at this report filed by my colleague Abhishek.
Just days after the special court under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act took cognizance of ED charge sheet filed against Maharashtra Minister Nawab Malik, we are at the Gaonwala compound, the property that finds a mention in the ED charge sheet. Remember, the ED in its charge sheet has said that Nawab Malik, in connivance with D-gang members like Haseena Parkar, Salim Patel, and one Sardar Khan, who's also a convict in the 1993 bomb blast case, had usurped this property from one Mrs. Munira Plumber. The court also took note of the ED charge sheet and observed that there seems to be enough evidence to suggest that Nawab Malik was involved in the money laundering case.
Well, let's get into the details of the 75-page charge sheet. What are the big takeaways from the investigation that has been carried out? This is the 75-page charge sheet that has been accessed by Republic TV. The key details, the key findings of the PMLA investigation that's been carried out. Let's take a look at the first big point that's coming in with regards to the criminal conspiracy, the angle of criminal conspiracy, and the fact that there is a direct link between the D-gang and Nawab Malik. This is what they are saying, that from the above it is clear that Nawab Malik connived with the D-gang members, that's Haseena Parkar, Salim Patel and Sardar Khan, involved in laundering of illegally usurped property proceeds of crime. Now, Let's also play out, let's go two frame and also show the visuals of the very place. And while I'm taking you through the details of the charge sheet, that'll give you a sense of which is the property that we are really talking about. The property that we are talking about is in Gaonwala compound, from where Republic was reporting. And this is what we are talking about. This is the very property that they made a mention of, the CTS number 336, and that's the proceeds of crime. That's the proceeds of crime that they are talking about. They're saying that this property was actually usurped, and the proceeds of crime was further being multiplied by way of collecting and channelizing rent through this company called the Solidus Investments Private Limited, a company that is connected to Nawab Malik and Malik Infrastructure. These companies were controlled by the Malik family. And take a look at this. They are saying that the satisfied with respect to the accused persons, in the light of the same, it is evident that Nawab Malik, Haseena Parkar, Salim Patel and Sardar Khan, and these two companies, they've committed offence under Section 3 of the PMLA. And this is, take a look at this. This is the amount of money that has actually been paid by Nawab Malik to people like Salim Patel, the details of which are also here in this charge sheet that has been accessed by Republic TV. Take a look at this. A big breaking news now coming in. Nawab Malik and Haseena Parkar entered into criminal conspiracy, and Nawab agreed to pay 55 lakh to Haseena Parkar, 5 lakh in cash and 5 lakh in check, which were paid in front of a witness by Faraz Malik, son of Nawab Malik, and Aslam Malik, brother of Nawab Malik. 15 lakh rupees to Salim Patel and 5 lakh rupees to Sardar Khan. Why this name becomes very important? This name, Sardar Khan, is a man who's been accused of the 1993 blast case. He's been convicted in that case and is now behind bars. This man actually received 5 lakh rupees, and a clear mention of the fact that Sardar Khan, 1993 bomb blast case, accused and convicted, life imprisonment, presently serving life imprisonment, part of the conspiracy. Rahman Khan, brother of Sardar Khan, was the rent collector of the property. Sardar Khan used to work for Nawab Malik. Clear mention, Sardar Khan used to work for Nawab Malik, and the same is evident from the statements that have been recorded by the Enforcement Directorate. They also go on to talk about the property owner. The property owner clearly talks about the link of Salim Patel, a man who has been associated with the NCP, member of NCP, and has been associated with Nawab Malik, has admitted about its association with Nawab Malik. So clear references that have now come out. Take a look at one more page, that's page number 67 of the charge sheet. And I asked my camera person to just give you a clear look where they're talking about Nawab Malik's role. Here the ED says they are convinced Nawab Malik connived with Haseena Parkar, Salim Patel, Sardar Khan for usurping this property. Document records have been taken into consideration. They are saying there were threats that were issued to the property owner. These ladies were fearful of even visiting the property due to the threat perceived by them. This presented an opportunity, and Nawab Malik and Haseena Parkar, both influential in the locality, wanted to benefit out of this situation. He was the mastermind of this planned conspiracy. He says they illegally occupied one store, the Kola General Store, using clout and muscle power, and then tried to regularize it with the strength of his might. So this charge sheet, which has now been accessed by Republic TV, clearly goes on to indicate that the Enforcement Directorate is now convinced. What is it that they are convinced? They're convinced about the link that has emerged between Nawab Malik and the D-gang, particularly Haseena Parkar, sister of Dawood Ibrahim, Salim Patel and Sardar Khan. Sardar Khan, a man directly connected to the 1993 blast accused. Now, let's take a look at some of the big charges that have been leveled against Nawab Malik of criminal conspiracy along with Haseena Parkar, Salim Patel and Sardar Khan. Remember, this was an allegation that was also leveled by the former Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis, who did a press conference, but all these charges have been denied by Nawab Malik and the party itself. What's the party position on this? NCP has also put out a statement in the past, clearly saying that this is yet another witch hunt that is being carried out by the centre, and not just that, that there is no such evidence that clearly puts anything on record to indicate that there is a link between Dawood Ibrahim's gang and Nawab Malik. Let me go across to Abhishek, who is there on the ground. went to that very place that we are talking about in this particular charge sheet that has been accessed, in which there is a clear mention of the property which they say was illegally usurped by Nawab Malik and Haseena Parkar. Abhishek, what is it that you found out as far as this very property is concerned?
Shravan, so if we look at the whole development of the case, we find a month back ED files the charge sheet regarding this property. And then a few days back, we get the court's observations saying that the ED charge sheet, which is quite extensive, which is quite well researched in its nature, as you have shown, clearly mentions the details and the meetings that took place between Nawab Malik, Haseena Parkar, Salim Patel, and one Sardar Khan. And Sardar Khan is also a convict in the 1993 Bombay bomb blast. And the entire charge sheet goes on to mention in detail how the whole meeting, how the whole nature of the transaction, and interestingly, this property, this Goawala compound, belonged to one Mrs. Munira, one Mrs. Munira Plumber, and she had alleged that the property was taken from her not by the right means. And ED in its charge sheet has went on to mention how the amount of transaction and the parties involved in the whole transaction of this property. And interestingly, the two firms mentioned by ED are also owned by Nawab Malik. So, and the court itself said clearly that the evidence and everything that the ED has in its hand goes on to clearly indicate that Nawab Malik was in connivance and was in connivance with the D gang and Haseena Parkar in order to usurp this property. We tried also to talk to a few locals there, but they were tight-lipped. None of them wanted to speak on camera. We also went to the office, to the Solidus office, which is located at a mall in Kurla itself. But again, it seemed to be a very shoddy place. It was a mall, but then it wasn't really fully constructed. It seemed some part of it seemed to be under construction, as well as the other areas were not open for everyone. So the whole thing indicates that the things are not really clear. And what ED mentions, ED has strong proof in its hand, strong evidence in its hand. Back to you, Shravan.
Well, Abhishek, just to take one more question quickly with you, and also the charge sheet that has been accessed here. Now, they make a mention of the fact that there were rents that were basically being taken, the rent from the very property that you actually visited. What was the arrangement like? How was this exactly being done? Who was actually collecting the money in the first place? And was there a direct link to Nawab Malik? Because if you take a look at what Nawab Malik has to say, he says that this was absolutely absurd. In fact, if you take a look at the statement of Nawab Malik, which has been recorded by the Enforcement Directorate, in which he goes on to basically make a mention of the fact that it was his brother who was actually in charge of this. He says he's heard of the name of Miss Munira Plumber, who was the owner of the said properties, and his brother acquired the tenancy from Kanchwala family through, and his brother approached Gaonwala family, and he was informed Mr. Rahman Khan's family was the caretaker and rent collector, and all the deals, all the issues were finalized in all these affairs. So it appears right now, Abhishek, from the statement, this is the statement of Nawab Malik that we have also put out. Now, in this statement that we are putting out of Nawab Malik, he's trying to perhaps shift the blame to his brother.
Yes, correct. The charge sheet clearly mentions that it clearly breaks down the amount of money involved in the transaction, as well as where the proceeds have gone. But Nawab Malik, in his defense, has claimed to be a victim. In fact, Nawab Malik, in his defense, has said that he himself did not know about the nature of the property and from whom he bought it. So he, on his part, has claimed ignorance. But how much room his claims have, or how much substance his claim to ignorance have, that seems that he will have to prove, given that ED has put out some strong proof. And in fact, given importantly, ED has given numbers. ED has given fixed numbers, certain numbers. So in order to provide proof against it, he will have to come up with something more substantial, rather than only claiming ignorance or saying that he was not directly involved in the whole trade, in the whole transaction of the property.
Well, in fact, Abhishek, we'll also try and get in some more reactions coming in from the NCP, because remember, they're making a mention of the fact that Salim Patel is someone who's actually worked with the NCP and has had a clear association with the party for a longer time, which essentially goes on to indicate that perhaps Nawab Malik, Salim Patel, they all were working together for a longer period of time. We'll try and get in a reaction from the NCP to hear their version of the charges that have been leveled. We'll try and go across to them. But just to recap some of the reactions that have also come in from the NCP. What is it that they have to say? What is it that they've been saying all this while, despite one of the senior leaders actually spending a longer period of time behind bars? Abhishek, if you can just respond, just put this into perspective as far as the reactions that have come in from the NCP so far. Salim Patel, in the charge sheet, they're saying, has been working with the NCP for quite some time, and that's how Salim Patel and Nawab Malik have known each other.
Well, the party can claim that
reactions
they
also
have
from
known
the
each other.
NCP. Meanwhile, let me get in a word from Abhishek. Yeah, go ahead, Abhishek. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, the party can claim that they both know each other due to or because of party work. But then one also has to note that this really is not a very recent transaction. This property exists here for some time, and this is not really something which is from back years. This transaction has a whole history, as the ED charge sheet shows that this was planning. This whole transaction had planning. It also had detailed execution, and it took quite some time to finalize on this deal. So it's not something that happened overnight. And even if they know each other, the claims made by ED completely point towards them also knowing Haseena Parkar, which is another way, which also points towards the illegality of the deal.
Well, thank you very much. Let me just quickly take a reaction coming in from Atul Bhatkalkar of the BJP. Mr. Bhatkalkar, Republic TV is the only network to have gotten the full access to this charge sheet. It's an explosive charge sheet. They're making a serious charge. They say that Nawab Malik was working in connivance with Haseena Parkar, Salim Patel and Sardar Khan. Something that the BJP has also alleged in the past. Former Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis, made that kind of allegation.
Yeah. No, not only while filing the charge sheet, even granting him judicial custody, that time also PMLA court categorically stated there is a prima facie proof that Nawab Malik is involved with the gang. But despite that, even after filing of charge sheet, Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray is not ready to take his resignation. That conclusively proves that not only Nawab Malik has connection with the
Mr. Bhatkalkar, I'll request you to stay on. I'm also getting a reaction from the NCP. Mr. Bhatkalkar, I'll request you to stay on. I'm also getting a quick reaction from the NCP. Brijmohan Srivastav is joining us. Mr. Srivastav, this charge sheet that has been accessed by Republic TV, there's a sensational claim. The claim is that your senior leader, Nawab Malik, was working in tandem with sister of Dawood Ibrahim, Haseena Parkar, Salim Patel, who's also worked with the NCP. And the third thing, that there is a connection between Sardar Khan, 1993 blast accused, and Nawab Malik. How do you respond? How does your party respond to it?
One thing I want to clear, that it is the observation of the ED, not the observation of the Honorable Court, PMLA Court. Okay? The investigating agency, we are saying since last 2.5 years that the government of India is misusing the constitutional agencies like CBI, ED, and the income tax and the ANI, and it is totally a part of that. Mr. Nawab Malik is totally a neat and clean person. He is having very long political life. He was elected more than 5 times as an MLA in Maharashtra. So his total life is very transparent. But this fact is given by the ED, as an investigative agency, and we know very well that since last 10 years.
You have a fair point, Mr. Srivastav. You have a fair point, Mr. Srivastav. These are findings of the Enforcement Directorate. Remains to be seen whether it's going to stand the scrutiny of the court. That's the bigger question at this point in time. I would thank Mr. Atul Bhatkalkar of the BJP and Brijmohan Srivastav for joining on This Is Exclusive. Let's move to the other